Joining us for more on this, Florida Congressman Mike Waltz, a Republican on the Armed Services Committee and a former Green Beret commander. Perfect guest for us today. Call for number one shows that illegal immigrant arrests with criminal records, 171 across 25 major cities. And those are just the ones that we caught. And then, of course, there's this iconic picture from this week where you had a migrant released without bail, flipping America the double bird as he gets released. Mike.
Yeah, well, Dana, look, I mean, you also have over 300, according to the FBI director, people on the terrorist watch list that are all over the country that the FBI is trying to track down. And I think what Governor DeSantis's actions, which I applaud, show is that this is a national problem. Whether it's Chicago, New York, Florida, with nearly 500,000 backlog immigration cases, we all need to step up and do what DHS is not doing and what the Biden administration is not doing. One way or another, we have to stop the humanitarian crisis. We have to stop the national security crisis. And just one other point, you know, what's happening with the numbers, the shift away from Texas and to Arizona and California, I think shows two things. One is obvious. Barriers and walls work. But two, importantly, how centralized these migrant flows are. The cartels are controlling them. And just in the period of a week, they're able to shift people across huge distances from Texas over to California. And that's why myself, Representative Dan Crenshaw, have introduced legislation to go on offense, use military resources against the cartel. That's the long-term one of the long-term fixes here.
Another thing here. Apparently, ICE arrested 73,000 non-citizens last year. 73,000 who had criminal records. That's according to the agency. They say they need more resources. You could also flip that argument around and say there's just too many coming across the border. Right? I mean, you're talking 78,000. Now, there's a case here in New York involves a U.S. Marine. Daniel Penny's his name. He may face trial for choking a person, an individual, a homeless man on a subway. His attorney is saying this about what's happening here in New York that we've watched. The primary purpose of bail, remember these guys didn't get bail, is to ensure that people return to court. From what I understand, they seem to have minimal, if no ties in New York City. Moreover, anyone who's willing to resist arrest, or even worse, assault a police officer, that's indicative of someone who doesn't have the respect for the legal system, which makes them even less likely to return to court. So if there was ever a situation where bail is appropriate, this seems that sort of case. I think the question is this: whether it's the local DA, what does the governor of New York do? If they know these migrants are on a bus to California, then they have contact with them. They can. What do you do? Do you ship them back over the border and make a headline out of that? Or do you bring them back to New York City and put them before a judge?
Well, she's done quite the, Governor Hochul's done quite the 180 recently, saying send them back and advocating for deportation after she was celebrating sanctuary cities. But I think you do what we've done in Florida. If local DAs are not going to prosecute the law, if they are going to allow violent criminals to remain on the street, whether they are U.S. citizens or not, then you fire them, then you remove them, and that you have the primacy of state law from a state legislature. You put people in place that's going to enforce it. I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, the politics for the left is only going to get worse and worse here. People feel unsafe in their inner cities. They feel unsafe with the world on fire abroad. And I think this is going to continue to make this next election a law and order and a safety election.
On this issue, President Biden says it's the Republicans' fault for not helping pass comprehensive immigration legislation that's right now being negotiated in the Senate. He blames Republicans for the problems at the border, and that's going to continue for the next 275 days. How will Republicans respond?
2 points, and I think this is getting overlooked. Republicans out of the House passed a border security bill 9 months ago, Dana, in H.R. 2. It's been sitting at Chuck Schumer's feet for 9 months. If they want to adjust it, if they want to amend it, if they want to debate about it, fine. We've been waiting on that and welcoming that. But it's only once, and you're seeing this from people you're talking to on the street, and you're seeing this in polling. It's only once the politics are turning bad, once governors and mayors and Democrat-led cities are speaking up, do we start to see some movement? And that's truly a shame. I fear we're going to have some type of attack like we just saw in Iraq that will finally, here at home, that will finally jolt the administration to do a 180 on its policy and take meaningful action, which it could do without Congress right now.
And just yesterday, 150 Democrats voted against legislation that was the Republicans were trying to pass that says they are against deporting illegal aliens guilty of DUI or Social Security fraud. So. All right. Mike Waltz, thank you for being here today.
Explain that to every American. Yeah,
exactly.
Thanks, Dana.